Good morning. As you know, Governor DeSantis remains committed to supporting the efforts here at Surfside alongside with Mayor Levine Cava. I'm sure he'll be back in short order. And again, our hearts go out to the families, the victims, and we continue to express our gratitude and appreciation for all the work that is being done here at Surfside. The state of Florida, in collaboration with the county, has launched a website that will best assist victims of the collapse who have unmet needs above and beyond what FEMA and other organizations are offering. The Surfside community, as we know, is resilient, and at the federal, state, and local levels, we are partnering with the private sector, the nonprofit partners that have come together to ensure that survivors, families, and first responders receive much needed support to persevere in the aftermath of this terrible tragedy. That website is www.surfsideassistance.com. For immediate support and assistance, you can log in. It is now live, and we appreciate the county's partnership on that. Your information will then be forwarded to all the appropriate government agencies, all the organizations and nonprofits to ensure that you get the assistance that you so need. I would also be remiss if I did not mention the situation that is unfolding in Cuba. As you know, Florida is home to the largest amount of Cuban Americans in the country. The governor is actively monitoring the protests on the island. We remain steadfast in our support on the side of freedom and democracy. And as the governor stated yesterday, Florida supports the people of Cuba as they take to the streets against the tyrannical regime that has plagued them for so many decades. The next several days will be pivotal for the freedom-seeking people in Cuba and their decades-long quest for freedom. So we'll continue to actively monitor that, and we're prepared for any and all impacts that we may see with that situation unfolding. Buenos días. El gobernador está comprometido a continuar su apoyo aquí con el condado en esta tragedia de Surfside. También le queremos reiterar nuestro agradecimiento a todos los que están involucrados en esta operación, que ha sido algo que de verdad nunca nos hubiéramos podido imaginar, y estamos muy agradecidos a todo el apoyo que hemos recibido, a los socorristas, a todos que han brindado apoyo en esta tragedia tan terrible. Ayer el estado de la Florida, en colaboración con el condado de Miami-Dade, ha lanzado un sitio web que ayudará a las víctimas del colapso que necesitan ayuda. Los gobiernos federal, estatal y local, junto con el sector privado y las organizaciones caritativas, se han unido para garantizar que los sobrevivientes y las familias impactadas pueden recibir el apoyo que tanto necesitan después de esta tragedia. Si usted es un ser querido, necesita ayuda, puede visitar a www.surfsideassistance.com para obtener apoyo y asistencia de inmediato. Su información se enviará a todas las agencias correspondientes para ayudarlos a obtener la asistencia que necesitan. Sería negligente de mi parte si no reconociera la situación que se está desarrollando en la isla de Cuba. Como sabe, la Florida tiene la cifra más grande de cubanos americanos en todo el país. Estamos monitoreando muy de cerca las protestas en la isla y el impacto que tendría en nuestro estado. Seguimos firmes del lado de la libertad, y el gobernador, como dijo ayer, la Florida apoya al pueblo de Cuba, que está manifestando en las calles por toda la isla en contra del régimen castrista. Estaremos monitoreando eso muy de cerca. Como sabemos, aquí el estado de la Florida será impactado, no importa lo que vaya a suceder, y estamos de nuevo orando para aquellos que están mostrando el coraje en sus manifestaciones. Los próximos días serán clave para el pueblo cubano, que desesperadamente por más de 6 décadas ha estado buscando la libertad. De nuevo le agradecemos a todos estar aquí. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava.
Good morning, everyone. Now we're here on day 19. We're glad to be joined this morning by our Lieutenant Governor, and I want to reiterate how grateful we are here in Miami-Dade County for the ongoing support, the unprecedented collaboration of our partners at the state, at the Florida Department of Emergency Management, FEMA. They've been by our side since the very beginning, and they have not left, and they will not leave. Our search and recovery continued over the last operational period, with some brief interruptions due to lightning. The Weather Service is still embedded with our teams on site, so we can get real-time updates to make sure that with any weather changes, our first responders are protected from the elements to ensure their safety. They can resume their work following pauses as soon as it's safe to go back, and the Weather Service guides them. We do expect ongoing inclement weather over the next few days, so we expect that there will be a few brief pauses. Our team has continued as ever to work diligently to make progress on the collapse and to recover the remains and bring closure to the families as quickly as we possibly can. Through search and recovery, we have confirmed additional victims. The number of confirmed deaths is now 94. 83 of these victims have been identified and 80 next of kin notified. Please join me in continuing to pray for those we have lost, the families who are grieving, and those who are still waiting. I want to stress that the police and the medical examiner teams are continuing their around-the-clock work to identify victims. However, the process of making identifications has become more difficult as time goes on, and the recovery at this point is yielding human remains. At this step in the recovery process, we must rely heavily on the work of the medical examiner's office. They're undertaking technical and scientific processes to identify the human remains. The process is very methodical and it is careful, and it does take time. Miami-Dade Police Department detectives continue to make progress with their ongoing audit and the diligent research necessary to verify that all reports of the unaccounted are verified. I want to stress, as I have done before, that we can only truly account for a missing person who is deceased once the identification is made. And so there may be people who are deceased who remain on the unaccounted list until a positive ID has been made. 222 people are now accounted for, and 22 people are potentially unaccounted for. The numbers are fluid, and they will continue to change as these efforts continue. Our Family Assistance Center continues up and running, and now 207 unique families have been served on site. We have 20 agencies actively serving, and yesterday, as you heard from the Lieutenant Governor, we launched the online portal for families to more easily access financial assistance for their unmet needs, and it contains all of the state and federal and other sources so that it's a one-stop shop for them to get the help they need. And this includes grief counseling, mental health services, financial support, and many others. And we know that they are going to continue to need our support in the days, weeks, and months ahead, and we are here for them to provide all the resources that we can. And I'm also very proud to share that our partners at the Small Business Administration, through their great outreach and work, have already received 72 applications. 43 of those are business applications, 29 are homeowners and renters. So their assistance covers a wide array of those needing assistance. And as we continue to support our business community to bounce back from this disaster, I want to continue to urge our community to support the small and local businesses of Surfside and the surrounding area. And finally, I want to take this opportunity to reiterate our strong support of the peaceful protests unfolding across Cuba. We stand united with the Cuban people on the island and all across our own community at this historic moment in the struggle for freedom, dignity, and basic human rights. We stand with them and we pray for their courageous actions to begin to bring about real change and move us closer to a vision of a free Cuba. God bless the families and first responders. Buenos días, aquí estamos en el día 19. Nuestra búsqueda y recuperación continuó durante el último periodo operativo con algunas breves interrupciones debido a rayos. Sin embargo, nuestro equipo continúa trabajando tan diligentemente como siempre para avanzar en el colapso, recuperar los restos y llevar al cierre a las familias lo más rápido posible. Durante el búsqueda y recuperación hemos recuperado víctimas adicionales. El número de muertes confirmadas es ahora 94. 83 de estas víctimas han sido identificados y 80 familiares notificados. Ahora se contabilizan 222 personas y 22 personas potencialmente están desaparecidas. Los números son fluidos como siempre y continuarán cambiando a medida que continúen todos estos esfuerzos. También me enorgullece compartir que nuestros socios de la Asociación de Pequeñas Empresas, a través de su gran alcance y trabajo, ya han recibido 72 solicitudes. 43 de ellas son aplicaciones comerciales, 29 son rentores y inquilinos. Mientras continuamos trabajando para ayudar a la comunidad empresarial afectada a recuperarse de este desastre, insto a nuestra comunidad a que continúe apoyando a las pequeñas empresas locales de Surfside y sus alrededores. Finalmente, quería aprovechar esta oportunidad para reiterar nuestro firme apoyo a las protestas en Cuba. Estamos unidos con el pueblo cubano en la isla y con toda nuestra propia comunidad en este momento histórico de la lucha por la libertad, la dignidad y los derechos humanos básicos. Los apoyamos y rezamos por sus valientes acciones para que comiencen a producir un cambio real y nos acerquen a la visión de una Cuba libre. Dios bendiga a todos en Cuba, a las familias aquí y a todos nuestros socorristas. Gracias.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett.
Good morning, everybody. I first want to touch on something that's become more and more apparent as the operation has gone on, and that is the significance of that site with respect to the people who have lost their lives there. We're having discussions now with the different levels of government, but most importantly, we're trying to understand what the families are wanting to do with the site. So that's something very important. And to that end, given it is a very, very sort of holy site at this point because we've lost so many lives, we're going to be tightening the security around that site, and it's only going to be authorized personnel that will be allowed near that site. And I think Director Ramirez is handling that, and I support that decision. I think that's the right thing to do because it's obvious that this has become much more than a collapsed building site. It is a holy site, for lack of a better word. This morning I also wanted to share a poignant bit of information gleaned during my visit to the site about an hour ago for the benefit of our families, which is my primary concern. As I talked with the overnight search teams, they described how carefully they are consistently going through the debris pile. As you know, the other day I talked about intact wine bottles being found. So carefully, in fact, that when they found a business card in the debris that listed the occupation of the card holder as an artist, they, as a result of that clue, began looking around and found paintings in the area, which they were able to pull out of the rubble and preserve for their family. This type of professionalism and compassion is emblematic of the amazing work that is being done at the site. The work overnight was halted several times for bad weather, as you heard, but the site and the debris pile, compared to yesterday, is nonetheless dramatically further reduced. In several locations of the pile, we are down to the parking area, and as a result, we're pulling out a good number of vehicles. Those vehicles are mostly terribly damaged evidencing the violence of the collapse in those areas. The search continues until everyone trapped in the debris is pulled out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And our Creole translator, Ivans Morisot.
Bonjour tout le monde. Malgré la pluie et les éclairs, nous continuons à chercher les victimes toujours. Les chiffres continuent à augmenter. Kounia, nous avons confirmé dans le monde que nous joignons qui mourent un chiffre de 94. Nous avons identifié 83 là-dedans. Et puis tout, 80 familles viennent de recevoir une notice là, de monde que nous joignons. Processus là, pour identifier les gens qui sont victimes, très difficile. Et il devient plus difficile à chaque moment. Les médecins légistes travaillent sans arrêter. Nous sommes capables de dire que nous joignons 222 personnes déjà. Et puis 22, nous avons cherché toujours. Encore, les chiffres sont capables de changer à n'importe quel moment. Ceux qui ont assisté famille que nous déjà préparé, qui déjà là et qui existait, il y a un bail service à près de 207 familles et il y a 20 dans l'agence qui là dans la localité ça. Ailleurs, nous démarrons un site internet pour bailler une assistance rapide à la famille qui a besoin de gagner un accès encore qui plus facile pour être capable de joindre financement, pour être capable de continuer avec le problème ça qui est là. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Morisot. And also here to answer questions for you, we have FEMA Federal Coordinating Officer Tom McCool. We have Florida Division of Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie. We have the Division Director for the Office of Emergency Management, Deputy Incident Commander Charles Cyril. We have the Miami-Dade Police Department Director Freddie Ramirez and the Miami-Dade Fire Deputy Chief Arthur Holmes, along with Erica Benitez, Director of Media and Public Relations for Spanish. First question, USA Today.
So unfortunately, our chairman of the county commission, Pepe Diaz, and his chief of staff have tested positive for COVID, although they were both vaccinated. And in an abundance of caution, those of us who were in close proximity have been tested, and that has occurred.
To follow up on that, can you explain what your testing procedures are for everyone on site, including the crew? Is it daily, and are there any other positive cases so far?
So Chief Kaminsky previously reported about the cases that had arisen in one of the task forces, and that was contained, and there was significant contact tracing conducted. In this case, everybody who's come in close proximity has been tested, and using both rapid and longer-term tests. So we have been fully tested.
Is there regular testing?
There is testing available on site for if ever there's an indication and a need, and so that's what we're using the facilities.
Madam Mayor, Spanish is requesting the same thing. Same response.
Okay. El jefe de la comisión y su jefe de operaciones también desafortunadamente están con COVID después de que eran vacunados, y por duda todos que estaban en contacto cerca con ellos han recibido pruebas para seguir adelante, y tenemos todo que necesitamos para las pruebas aquí en Surfside.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Madam Mayor, quick question, please. With respect to those tests, all have come back negative?
The rapid test, yes,
Yeah.
and then longer also.
Thank you. And Mr. Burkett, a quick question. You spoke, I know volunteer efforts seem to be wrapping up at the Surfside Community Center. And kitchen there may be wrapping up, and some folks want to stay there and keep on working. I'm just wondering, is there an urgency to close that up, or why is it Why is it those operations being shut down?
I don't think there's an urgency to close it. I think that what happened is I was told yesterday was that the town of Surfside did an inspection and found that there were many concerning sort of issues. You know, they scaled up very quickly. They've done an amazing job. I've gone there every day and I've eaten the food and I've used the facility, and it's cathartic to go there. It's wonderful. I mean, there are comfort dogs, there are psychological people there, there are families that are eating and talking and decompressing. So it's been a wonderful sort of operation. I think that the concern is that we don't want another tragedy in town. And I think that there were propane tanks, there were electrical cords. I mean, it was thrown together pretty quickly. And I think that now that we've been able to get a grip on things, I think the manager's intention is not to close them down, but to relocate them to the south here where we have the food court. And to that end, I asked the manager if we could assist them in moving, and he said, absolutely. So I've spoken with them. I've given them that offer. I've told them that we would do what we could to help them get set up in this more appropriate site, because the way it is right now, we just, in an abundance of caution, we don't want another tragedy. They've done a great job. There's nothing wrong with them. It's the situation that's the issue.
Well,
Thank you. Mayor, you mentioned them tightening security around the site. If you could tell me, is that just proactive, or were there people actually trying to access the site, whether to steal things or to somehow contaminate?
Good morning, ma'am. Yes, it's just proactive. We've always had it secure, but we really want to make sure. There's a lot of emotion. You know, we talked about, people are saying it's a holy site. As families are being notified about their family members, the ask is always about property. People want some sort of connection with their family member. So it's very important that our process that we have in place continues to flow uninterrupted. This is one of those situations where you have the connection of an investigation and a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and a lot of want to make people feel better. So it's very important that we stay within our discipline, stay within our process, so down the road we can provide some sort of comfort to the family members. That's all it's for. Sí, sí, siempre hemos estado asegurando la cena. El problema es que hay mucha emoción, la familia tiene mucho dolor, y lo que tenemos es una investigación, y también tenemos que queremos dar, tú sabes, amor a la familia, a darle closure. So es muy importante que mantenemos las cenas aseguradas para que los detectives sigan haciendo su trabajo, recuperando propiedad, para que en un tiempo cuando se puede, podemos tratar de reunir esas propiedades con la familia. Eso porque lo pusimos más duro, eso porque para proteger el proceso de investigación. Gracias.
Sir?
I'm wondering if you can be a little more specific about some of the incidents that might have contributed to upgrade security, if you will. Have there been people who have been apprehended?
No, there's no criminality here, not at all. It's just, you know, we're 19 days into it. There's still families that are sitting there. There's families that are now recalling things. Nobody's done anything criminal. It's just part of the process. You know, this is a long, painful, hurtful process. I'm so proud of our property and evidence detectives that are back there, made a makeshift property room, going from every little memento, from a picture, whatever they come across. We know that item is going to give some sort of comfort to the family members. That's all. And we want to make sure that our folks can do what they got to do. We have a lot of engineers and workers in there that are moving debris. Things move around, and I just want to do my very best to recover what we can recover to give back to the families at a later date. To give them, this is more of a human thing, and I just want to make sure that's maintained.
Thank you.
Mayor, or could somebody maybe speak to, do you have an idea as to when this would start winding down as far as removal of all of the rubble?
So we have Chief Holmes for any technical aspect to this, but we have been told, and we've been telling you, that we can't put an outside date on it. Something in the window of the 14 to 21 days, hopefully on the shorter side of that. And we are making great progress on the pile, And so, do you have an update on that, on the timeline? No specific timeline. So, we're here every day giving you the updates. As of yesterday, it was 12 million pounds of concrete that had been removed. And, of course, we are continuing to delayer and access lower portions of the building. Estamos siguiendo muy bien en la búsqueda y recuperación y estamos bajando los pisos que podemos revisar. En el momento no tenemos una fecha fija para terminar el proceso, pero esperamos dentro de 14 días más o menos, pero no podemos decir nada fijo en el momento.
Hi, Mayor, with the Miami Herald. You mentioned that there's no set timeline. This has been a long, methodical process. And with that added sort of delay with identifying some victims, what are you communicating to families who are already going through this anguish? How are they feeling about this delay, which maybe is necessary, but how are they
Yes. So naturally, the families are in anguish, waiting for information about their loved ones. And because of the full sharing of information, clarifying for them every step of the process, I think they truly understand the point that we are right now. Human remains more difficult to identify. We ask for their patience. We're supporting them, and their faith counselors and others are working with them to understand the importance of being sure that we have a positive identification before they can proceed.
Thank you, folks. Remember that we're going to do one briefing per day, so we'll reconvene tomorrow at 10 a.m.